Deion Sanders and Colorado are looking to make a big splash in the 2025 recruiting market, but can they make a splash at quarterback?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Boulder. The Locked On Buffs podcast is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We are also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Joining me today is the recruiting savant, Brian Smith. He knows everything to know about recruiting. And we're going to talk about Colorado recruiting because it's somewhat of an enigma. It kind of happens, but it kind of doesn't. But one of the names that a lot of people
That's true.
One of the names that a lot of people are interested in is a quarterback by the name of Julian Lewis, a 5-star, kind of like the who's who of quarterbacks, Georgia kid. He's visiting everywhere, but he's been committed to USC. And I think Colorado fans are really hopeful that maybe they could slide in there and get in the mix. What are your thoughts on his recruitment and where Colorado stands?
Well, I think his recruitment is bizarre in the bizarre world.
Mm-hmm.
Like committed early to SC, enlists as a 25 prospect when he's really 20,000 or 2026. So he moved up a class, still taking visits to Alabama, still taking visits to Georgia. And then on top of that, he visited Auburn. And then on top of that, he's talking about Colorado. So this notion that he's committed to SC is first off garbage. That's first off. Second off, he is tremendous. There is no ifs, no ands, no buts. We knew by his sophomore year, like he was about as accurate a quarterback as you're going to get. Not the biggest guy, but intellectually, and he's a real good guy too. Intellectually and his accuracy, all that are there. As I think it was his freshman year, in 7A state title game, he threw for 550.
Yeah.
In Georgia.
It's a big deal. That's a big deal.
He's advanced beyond advanced. It's to the point, though, like his dad doesn't let him get interviewed. It's a sideshow. His dad's the problem, not the kid. I don't know what the situation is going to be with how he's going to finalize all this, but I've heard rumblings like Georgia wanted a quicker timeline, et cetera. They would have taken the Zollers kid that recently committed to Missouri. Kirby knows he doesn't have to have the number one quarterback to win the title. Steve's one of the better ones, which it's just true. That's a different kind of program because of their ability to get players across the board. But that still kind of tells you something. I don't know how accurate that is, but then they were really wanted Zoller. So I don't know how else to put it. I think Colorado has a puncher's chance. If you get him on campus, you do. And Deion is the most unique recruiter in the country, maybe ever, because either you want to be a part of that or you don't. It's A or B. And I don't know how they're going to look at it, but Shador's going to be gone after this year. I mean, I don't know. You could tell me, Kevin, who their next quarterback would be after that, but I'm guessing it's a guy that's either not on the roster or somebody that's barely played anywhere, Colorado or otherwise. So it's pretty freaking open. So there is an intrigue there. I just don't know if they want him getting killed because Colorado, as we've talked about multiple times here, doesn't exactly have the greatest O-line history since Deion's been on campus.
Right.
So
and
that's
the quarterback situation. You hit it on the nail or hit it on the head exactly. I talk about it all the time. It's like they have Shador, and he's probably a top 3 quarterback at worst. And then after that, their most experienced quarterback started a couple games last season. So they have a couple guys in there. I just look at that room, and I'm like, maybe none of these guys. Maybe it's going to be a freshman that comes in early. Maybe it's going to be a transfer. But in terms of the offense line, they did improve. So that's a good thing. So that's a selling point. You know, they got a bunch of transfers that can help protect the quarterbacks. But I do think the Julian Lewis thing is interesting because I kind of almost forget that he's committed to USC because I feel like I see more stuff about him visiting somewhere. Like he took a visit to Indiana a couple months ago, and it was like
bizarre.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's a little weird. I know the new coach there is a winner, and he's like a cool guy or whatever, but wasn't expecting the Indiana visit. But I do think that if Colorado fans want to like zero in on a quarterback to follow, I talked about him yesterday. TJ Lateef out of Orange, California, is down there from the LA area. He's kind of the guy that I think is who Colorado fans should be focused on. I think Julian Lewis, if Colorado were to get him, would be one of those like Travis Hunter signing day events where it was like, oh shoot, he flipped at the last minute. Like that'd be my prediction for if Colorado got Julian Lewis. Would you agree that it goes something like that probably?
Well, I mean, they just don't normally get high school kids. So
that's
getting a quarterback on top of it being a really good player
mhm.
would be tremendous. They need, like most, not all, but most of the top classes, whether it's Georgia, Bama, Notre Dame, Texas, Florida State, whatever, they usually get their quarterback early, and that kid really promotes the program. Like Deuce Knight's committed to Notre Dame. He's all over social media helping the Irish get kids. They've got 19 commitments.
Yeah.
That's more than Colorado will sign in 2 years.
Yeah. Colorado is clearly or currently at a 0 right now. They have no one to their class, but they do have people interested. They have people visiting, and 2 of the guys that are visiting are IMG teammates. They have offensive lineman Caden Strayhorn and then Alex Graham, who's a safety. The kind of notion on them is they've played football all together forever. They're kind of a package deal, even though they're not really the same positions. They just are visiting schools together. Talk to me about them.
Strayhorn is a kid that is just power, interior offensive lineman, good kid. He's got a younger brother, a year younger than him, but looks quite a bit like him. He's going to be another recruit. I think he's the guy that can help somebody after a redshirt year. He's a little more technically sound. IMG has tremendous coaching. The O-line coaches do a really good job. This is not really a high school. I mean, I get to go. They invite me down for practices and events and stuff, and it's like it's like being at a college. So he's going to be more advanced. Graham's a kid that can really run. He has the athleticism to play nickel. He can play corner. He can play safety. He can play whatever. IMG, no baloney, has like 8 to 10 DBs that will play college football. They're too deep. Like they got one kid I think is better at corner, has to play safety because you got to put him somewhere. So he's going against more competition. Talk about Alex in practice they do in games. Like I don't go to IMG games very much because they're boring. By the end of the first quarter, you and I can leave. You know what I mean? Like it's over. It's 21-0, and they've got the ball at midfield. So watching their practice though, there'll be 15 guys along there with me that are college coaches. So there's a reason for it. Deion wants impact guys, and that's why he's recruiting IMG, and it's smart. They will come in more mentally and physically prepared, and that's going to help them because Colorado needs immediate impact guys. So it's a smart decision.
How big of a deal is it to get these IMG kids, even if it's just 2 for right now, to take visits? Obviously, they got Seton already, so he kind of has shoehorned a pipeline a little bit. So how important is it to get them to visit Colorado? Because obviously, and we'll talk about it next, he doesn't do at-home visits, which we'll talk about in the next segment.
Deion's health, I'm sure, has a lot to do with that, and I get it. It's probably a pain in the butt for him to travel, but Seton opened the door. He's got a huge personality. He's a lot of fun to be around. I enjoy talking to Seton. And I'd imagine that a lot of people respect him because he could have went to UF. He could have went to Bama. He could have went to Ohio State. He could have went to Maryland or God knows how many other schools. So they're like, okay, what's the deal? I'm sure NIL was part of it or whatever, but he could have got that at other places too. So they're going to open their eyes to Colorado because he picked Buffs.
Yeah.
I think it would be really important, and I'm sure their spring game is part of this, that he plays well. It's publicized and all that stuff so they can say, hey, you can come here and make an impact from IMG or anywhere else. So that's an interesting part of it. And finally, that's a kid, again, like the Nick Sabans of the world want it. They're going to be able to sell that to all the other IMG kids, and they know it because Seton was like, we all crowded around him to interview him at media sessions. So it is a big deal.
It's a big deal, and I think if he could manufacture that into a relationship with IMG, obviously you're not going to get everyone, but getting 2 or 3 IMG guys a year, not a bad deal. It's really not a bad deal. Before we move on, Colorado added another 2024 guy to their class from across the pond. They added Yaya Atita, I believe is how you pronounce it. Probably not. He's an offensive lineman from England. So look at the offensive line getting more depth. It's out there. Talk to me about, obviously, I'm not sure how dialed in you were to the NFL Academy, but Coach Prime's getting a little resourceful. He's added 3 commits in the past 2 weeks for his 2024 class. What does that show you? That he's kind of still looking around, or maybe he's just finding those hidden gems?
I think it's both. They just need more roster spots. It's not easy. And offensive line is a grind. It's a long process. Not many kids come from IMG. You need kids that are going to be kind of like bullets in the gun. Somebody's going to make it. Somebody's not. You got to take as many as you can to get up to about 15 players and not just rely on backups from the portal. That doesn't end well. Ask Shador. So I would imagine that he saw something, but the kid's probably somewhat of a project. I mean, he's not playing the same kids that they are in the Dallas Public League. I can assure you that. Right. So you got to find ways to get kids on campus that you can develop, and maybe this is the start of that.
Yeah.
I mean, taking a kid from England's pretty wild. But you know what? Florida took a kid like that last year.
Oklahoma
Notre Dame
did
took a
too.
D lineman like that about 4 years ago. So it's the new trend. I don't know how much I trust it because I can't watch the film and say, well, the guy he's going against is really good because they're usually not. That's my concern. That's my concern.
A little bit about him just before we move on. He's 6'4", 330, which is a good size for someone coming in. His other notable offers, though, he had 3 total offers listed by 24/7. It was Campbell and then LIU. So he wasn't heavily recruited. Obviously, I think it's most coaches aren't sending scouts out to England to tune
No,
in
they're
to
not.
games. But another addition for Colorado, and I think he's kind of showing more effort in the recruiting ranks. When we come back, we're going to be talking about his 2025 start and the no visits thing, because I feel like that's a very controversial stance and topic. But first, a word from our sponsors over at Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You don't have to worry about having a random pole in your face or sitting behind the foul pole. You should know where you're sitting thanks to Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Joining me again, Brian Smith, our recruiting insider. We're talking about Colorado's, I guess, lack of success at this moment. They have big names coming in, and I think, man, you could agree or disagree with this. I think sometimes when you shoot for those 4 and high 5 stars, or high 4 stars and 5 stars, the recruitments last a little longer. So maybe that's why they haven't landed anyone. Maybe. But Colorado currently has 0 commits, and they are Chris Ball to land someone like a Montrez Walker. Is there any concern or room for concern that they haven't landed anybody yet? Because I know it's kind of early, but like you said, Notre Dame has 20 people.
It's bizarre they don't have anybody with Deion as the head coach. And I found that a little peculiar because I looked at it about a week or so ago, and I'm like, they don't even have an in-state commit because there's usually 3 or 4 really good players in Colorado. Mm-hmm. You would think one of them is already pledged to the Buffs. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I am personally concerned because he's such a charismatic and energetic figure. I just figured he would have a few guys, maybe a Dallas player because he's lived there forever.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be that hard. The visit thing that we're going to get into is part of it, but like in-home visits aren't even part of this yet. Schools just get commitments based on unofficial visits. So beautiful campus, neat state, iconic head coach. Why don't they have commitments? I'm a little skeptical. I don't understand this very much.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of notion because I assume he wants a lot of his action or recruiting action to come after official visits, which obviously you don't really want them taking official visits during the offseason. So I feel like he's banking on them coming to campus during a game, seeing the environment, and winning the recruitment and the game that game. So that way they could kind of make a statement. To answer your question about why there's no Colorado commits, if 24/7 Sports is updated right now, they've offered 1 person in the state of Colorado. So not sure how accurate or up to date that is, but one of their new coaches, I forgot which one, said that they wanted to put more of an emphasis on recruiting Colorado because Coach Prime has put an emphasis on the 4 states, Georgia, Texas, Florida, and then I think California is in the mix as well. Is there, based on this season, do you think there's any connection to how well they do? Is he going to have to broaden his horizons a little bit? Is he going to have to dabble into an Arizona, or maybe there's a kid in Idaho that's really good, like Gatlin Bear last year. He was really good. Obviously, you don't expect there to be a 5-star receiver in Idaho, but is Colorado going to have to start looking at other states just because of how congested all these other states are?
If you go where the talent is, good things happen. I don't understand the philosophy if he's truly just concentrating on 4. I mean, got to have priorities, but he's got to recruit the surrounding area: Oklahoma, Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas. Pick 1 kid out of like Oklahoma's not going to take every kid in that state. And Oklahoma State can't recruit itself out of a wet paper box. So you can get 1.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's got to be a kid in Arkansas that really doesn't want to play for the Hogs. Have you been to Arkansas lately? It's not the most exciting place.
As a California resident, I try to not avoid that area, but there's better places to see, in my opinion.
There you go. Like, there's other ways to do it. With his name, he could go to North Carolina and get a kid. He can go to Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably not the best plan. And I'm sure he's got offers to some other kids, but you got to be pretty broad when you're in a state that doesn't produce a lot of talent. Again, give or take 5 kids a year that can play at Colorado. Like, you're just sure of it. I mean, there'll be a couple more out of that state. So you got to recruit out of state, but let's
at least take 3 of them. Go 3 out of 5, because Colorado State might get 1 or 2. But looking at just the breakdown before we talk about his in-home visits, which he doesn't do, this is how he offers recruits. So Florida leads the way with 61 players offered in this 2025 class. California is at 46, Texas is at 35, Georgia 33, and then the next closest state is Tennessee with 12. So obviously heavy focus on those 4, and then everywhere else is kind of like a here or there maybe. I do think that could be, and I've talked about this with this transfer portal stuff, and you probably agree. I think this year, depending on how they do, will be an adjustment period, possibly. If they don't succeed with the portal method again, and if they don't succeed with only pursuing guys from those 4 states, we may need to go back to the drawing board. And part of that may be in-home visits. How, I don't say crazy because that seems like we're calling him crazy, but how obscure is it to not see a coach do at-home visits? Obviously, we know he has health issues, so that could be a thing. But he said himself he's more focused on getting them to campus.
There's no politically correct way to say this. It's a disaster. People want to see him come to their house. Yep. That's going to be a problem. I have very, very serious concerns about that, especially with parents. And I know the medical thing with the foot and all that, especially with the parents. It means something to have him at the house, or any head coach to come to the house. Now, they can do a Zoom with him while somebody else on the staff is there. That's good, but it's not the same as having Deion shake your hand in the living room. That is the problem.
Okay. And then also, and I pitched this when this first broke, because I'd already known that he wasn't doing at-home visits. 1, no one talks about it. 2, if there was a Deion Sanders at-home visit, don't you think there'd be a bajillion pictures? I don't know why it took an expose to figure that out, but I was like, yeah, we knew this. He does not leave Boulder. The only time I'd seen him leave Boulder is to visit Dallas, which is where he has a home. So realistically, I thought he could do, and this is only something that he could pull off probably. He puts together a list of 20 kids, and he visits those 20 kids. And then this is Prime's 20 or Prime's 25 or whatever it may be, where he visits them at home. Do you think that'd be a good recruiting tool for him to kind of make it he only visits the few?
I mean, every kid needs to be, because you'll alienate some high school coaches and stuff too. There's a two-sided story.
Yeah,
trust me, high school coaches are very touchy. So you got to be careful, especially if you had a kid you were really interested in Texas, a proud state like that, a high school coach, that will not end well.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that's a good idea. He needs to go to all of them.
Yeah.
They visit. And he's not going to, and I think it's going to cost him dearly.
Yeah. Okay. Their spring game is in, we'll call it 2 weeks. I think it's a little over 2 weeks. Do you think that's an event that they can manufacture some success? Obviously, it's not going to be the same as last year. Just to update those who don't know, it's on the Pac-12 networks, unfortunately. ESPN didn't want it because obviously the NFL draft is around the same time. Fox Sports is focusing on the Big Ten because they just signed a deal with them. So Colorado will be on the Pac-12 networks, which if you guys want to watch, this isn't an ad, but get Fubo. Get your free account. Delete it after the day. That's how you watch those games on the Pac-12 networks. As a former employee of the Pac-12 networks, that's how people watch them. Do you think Colorado could still manufacture this into a success? They're having a fashion show. They're having Lil Wayne perform at the end of the game. Do you think this is a recipe for success?
If you make it an event, it can be. Absolutely. Lil Wayne's performing. I mean, the students will be into it and stuff, and that's cool. Good for them. I like that idea. But I don't know how many they're going to get, and I don't know what they're trying to manufacture as a number, or where they're prioritizing. I'm guessing Dallas would be the most likely because of Deion's connection, and it's really not that far to fly to Denver from Dallas. So maybe they get some success out of it. The more important thing is, do they get any commits in a couple of weeks thereafter? If they're at 0 at the end of April, I'm going to be like, look, this is going to be a catastrophe.
Okay. End of April. Okay. Well, everyone circle end of April.
Yeah,
that's kind of
they need to have at least 1 or 2, conservatively. Come on.
Okay. That's a good date, because we don't really have a proper recruiting calendar. But
right now we do not.
Yeah. So end of April, everyone keep it circled. If you go to 24/7 Sports and the commitments number is still at 0, level concern could raise a little bit. When we come back, we are going to be talking about, is this a statement year for Deion Sanders and Colorado recruiting and transfer portal wise, or is it just any other regular year? But first, a word from our sponsors over at FanDuel, because obviously if you guys want to get in on the action, FanDuel is the place to do it. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, I would say if I had to give gambling advice, which I never do because I never would do that, I would just look at the NBA and look at the teams that are tanking, and the NBA draft is approaching. They want the top pick. Maybe look somewhere over there. That's just an idea. Same thing with baseball. There's teams that currently have like 1 or 2 wins. Maybe look over there. Things could happen. You never know. Go check it out over on FanDuel. Okay, Brian, we were talking about it being a statement year for Colorado. I think obviously it's a statement in terms of they went 4-8 last year. Whether people want to admit or not, that was somewhat successful considering how terrible the program was prior. It was, even if you look at where all those guys ended up, they're all at Group of 5 FCS schools, and not many of them were starting. So that roster just was not Power 5 caliber level the year prior. They are talking playoff. They're talking Big 12 championship, which when I people get upset with this, I tell them, find me a college football coach that says we plan on winning 7 games. You find me that coach, and then maybe I'll adjust my stance. But everyone is hoping to contend. But I think Colorado has to make a statement in order to continue their style of roster building. Would you agree?
They've got to adapt. Yeah. They have to do better at high school, and I'm very concerned about the travel stuff with Deion and all that, and their focus. I don't like their plan personally. But Deion has always done things differently, so maybe he'll prove me wrong. That's why you wait and see. Mm-hmm. The other part of this, I mean, Shedeur is a very special player, and I know it's Deion's kids that adds to it. They could win 6 games this year, and I think like Deion, we're going to be really – I'm not buying what Deion says. Like he thinks they're going like maybe a playoff baloney. I don't see that at all. But if they can win 6 games, get to a bowl or something, they might win on the back end of this with recruiting. They got to prove something to recruits more than anything else. And I know he wants media to shut up. He likes getting in arguments with guys. Recruiting is the #1 thing for this program where he's not going to be there long. If they go 4-8 again this year, he's going to be on a hot seat. So they got to find a way to win football games this year. So this portal window that's coming up on the 16th of April through the 30th is everything. I mean, he likes the portal anyway. They got to get some more of the top guys. He did what he could last year, and I'm not bitching at it. They probably, like, I agree. When I first saw them, I'm like, okay, they got some offense, but their defense is an atrocity to mankind. Can they win 5 games? They didn't. And I just, Shedeur got beat up. What did he get sacked? 45 times or something ridiculous like that?
52.
Oh, my God. That is insane. That's insane. Nobody should get hit that much. Good for him for being a warrior. But
yeah,
they got to win some games this year to elongate recruiting, get back in on some recruitments they didn't win, flip some kids, etc. Cormani's got to play. Like, I don't know what the hell happened, but Cormani's an immature kid they were trying to develop, and good for Deion for doing that. But all those things got to hit, or else he's going to be in the hot seat going into year 3, which I'm sure he can't contemplate, but you can't go 4-8 back-to-back years. Can't do it.
Yeah, it would be tough. And I think the 4-8 thing is especially worrisome to even think about just because this is a much better team. You look at the Big 12. The Big 12 is the weakest, I would say, Power 4 conference from –
100%.
Like there's a couple good teams at the top, but other than that, this is a very doable thing for Colorado. I don't know if they can make it to the Big 12 title game, but if you told me by the second week in October they were kind of in a position where if they won this game and another team lost this game and they'd be in the top 2, I wouldn't be shocked. So Colorado has a chance to make a statement this year. You don't want to fail with what I think is going to be Deion's biggest roster or best roster, because if you fail with this roster, then I don't know where you go after that, because it's kind of like Shedeur's gone, Travis Hunter's gone, Shiloh's gone. Like all these core players are going to be gone. So I feel like that's kind of the statement that they need to make. Brian, if you had to have one recruiting hot take about Colorado before we go, what would it be?
I would say that they have a chance on this upcoming weekend to make a splash for visits, because I mean that place is beautiful, man. Like
Yep.
for those of you who haven't done it before, like search Google or whatever app it is you want to use and look at photos of the greater Boulder area. It's dope. I've never been there. I mean, I've been to Denver, but like just the view and everything, it's not a hard sell. If they do it right, they should get a couple kids to commit.
Yeah, Boulder's a great place. I went out there last year for the spring game, and it was just sort of like a magical, like winter wonderland. It was just awesome. Had the beautiful mountains, like looks like you could throw a baseball and hit the mountains from the football stadium. Like it's just one of those places. Great place, and hopefully for Colorado's sake, they could attract some people there and get some people to raise that number from 0 to a crooked number. As my Little League baseball coach used to say when we hadn't scored yet, get a crooked number up there, so that way we can contend. Brian, talk to the people about where they can find you and what you're working on, because obviously you're all over the place.
Yeah, I do shows all over the Locked On Network. I run Locked On Seminoles covering Florida State, but anything in the South, I cover it through my Twitter handle, or X, if you will, at FBScout_Florida. So between now and the end of the month, Colorado or otherwise, you're going to see a gazillion kids either commit or set official visits. We are in recruiting season.
It's recruiting season. It's the best time of the year. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs, and I will see you guys tomorrow.